I want to get a line from you first, though, quickly about the news flow we're getting out of London. Secretary Besant, Lutnick, also the USTR Jameson Greer. Basically, the takeaway is they're saying that once China approves licenses for its producers to allow the flow of critical minerals out of China to continue or to resume, Washington could dial back its tech export controls. So I want to ask you this question in light of your background at state and also defense. I mean, look, this isn't about trade anymore. It's pretty clear, right? This is not about stuff that you're going to pick up off the shelves at Costco or Walmart. When you're talking about critical minerals and then dialing back tech export controls, this is about national security. Should these talks be focusing on something like that, or rather, should national security be discussed in this kind of framework?
Yeah, it's a great question, Martin. It's great to be here. I think in many ways you've already hit the nail on the head. It's not really about the tariffs or about the minerals. This is really about a larger competition that's ongoing between Washington and Beijing, and it's shaping the entire world around us and how different countries are lining up. It certainly gets in the conversation about Japan, but this is very complicated, and trying to see through the dense fog that was already referenced is particularly difficult at this moment.
Okay. Right. Let's get to your bailiwick now, and that is Japan. We've had, 5 rounds of talk so far. No definitive conclusion. Part of or on the agenda has got to be cooperation with Japan, or trying to get Japan's cooperation on the critical minerals. Yes, and you could rope Canada into that. You could rope Australia into that as well.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Japan has probably more kind of experience dealing with China, particularly on critical minerals. And you referenced the idea of national security. Japan is kind of the country that invented the concept of economic security, which combines your traditional national security with the economic areas that are being discussed. It's a little unusual to be seeing the level of intense dialogue going on between the U.S. and Japan, certainly because there's a lot of uncertainty. There used to always be the understanding that with a security alliance, you kind of get the first bite at the apple. But in many ways, there's a competition going on in Asia to see who can be the first country to get that deal.
Joshua, it's Lynn here. We are just a few days away from the G7 summit, with both sides seeming to indicate that they see that particular summit and the meeting between the two leaders as a target date for some sort of a deal or framework of a deal. Given some of the comments we're hearing from the Japanese side, Akazawa-san saying that they are still in a dense fog when it comes to the road ahead, do you see it realistically that Japan could reach some sort of a deal by then?
I think you reported on the fact that there's been these 5 rounds. Akazawa-san's basically living on a plane going back and forth. They are doing everything in their power. But of course, there's elections coming up in Japan, and nobody can blink in this case. Everyone kind of expected that certainly before the next round and the 90-day of the tariffs unwound in July, the G7 was the perfect time. And of course, you have the G7 and you have the NATO summit, in which the two leaders, the Prime Minister of Japan and President Trump, will be meeting each other. Everybody wants to get this deal done. I just got back from Tokyo. It's really what everyone is talking about. But they still seem to be pretty far away on what the actual substance is. They can't give up something as important as the auto industry in Japan. But I think everybody wants to get this deal done so they can move forward into the level of investment. Japan is willing to do a lot of things. Japan and the U.S. have such a strong relationship. The foundation is strong. We just have to get past the politics.
Given your background as well in defence, we know that Tokyo's position has been that they wanted to separate out defence spending from the actual trade talks. But do you see that as playing a factor as well? I mean, we've seen a historic shift already, but at the Shangri-La dialogue recently, Pete Hegseth talked about Asian allies getting to 5%.
Yeah, I think in some ways you have to decouple these things. When you try to put them all in one bucket, it gets really complicated. When you have a relationship as robust and as strong as the U.S.-Japan, I think it makes sense to look at this strategically, but there's also the status of forces, the number of military troops in the Japanese archipelago. It becomes really complicated. And historically, free trade and open free movement of goods and services has been what's driven the U.S.-Japan economy. And so I think there's a lot of confusion in Japan. The dense fog that you referenced Akazawa-san talking about is something something that all business leaders, not just government ones, are talking about. They want certainty going into the fall. And of course, Japan has doubled its spending in terms of security, but going from 2% to 5% when that was already a heavy lift under former Prime Minister Abe, that's going to be very hard in many ways.